Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, in the land of Capone, Ernie Banks, Bobby Hull, Peyton, Jordan, there is a fighter. He's in his mid-20s, and right now he's a bit of an urban legend. He's an underground legend. His name is Andrzej Fonfara. And tonight, he's going to try to break global. He's taking on the road warrior, Glen Johnson. Now, Johnson has openly said that if he loses to Fonfara, who he considers to be relatively untested, then it might be time to end his career. Right? Now, many people want to know, can relatively untested Fonfara, the biggest name on his resume is Byron Mitchell, can he withstand Glen Johnson's non-stop attack? You know Glen Johnson, he has one of the great chins in boxing history. I don't believe Glen Johnson has been stopped in a fight going back to his stoppage by Bernard Hopkins in the 1990s. And understand, this is a guy who went the distance with Carl Froch, right? Went the distance with Lucien Boutte. You know, it's not like Glen Johnson has been sheltered, right? He fought Roy Jones. He's fought Antonio Tarver. He's fought a lot of heavy hitters. He never gets stopped. But understand, for me, the question is not whether Fonfara can withstand Glen Johnson. I have a more basic question, and it's whether Glen Johnson can withstand Andrzej Fonfara. I mean, Fonfara is unknown outside of Chicago, but this guy is one of the most offensive fighters in boxing, right? He fights off his front foot. That's not going to stop simply because he's fighting Glen Johnson. I believe we're going to see a different type of fight against Glen Johnson than we normally do. Lucien Boutte, Carl Froch, these guys stuck a jab in Glen Johnson's face, pivoted, tried to keep Glen Johnson moving, right? Fonfara is a two-handed attack on his front foot. He likes to headhunt. He throws combinations. He's a bit of a throwback. This isn't an ambush fighter. Far from it. This is a guy who shows up in your living room and doesn't want to leave, right? He's not trying to ambush you. He's trying to overwhelm you. It's different. So he's going to be right in front of Glen Johnson, matching Johnson blow for blow. He's 6'2", right? He does have a left jab, but what he likes to do is to throw that left jab, then come across with a right cross. If you step inside his wheelhouse, then he becomes a hooker. But he's more than a mid-range hooker, right? Because this is a guy who can hurt you at long range with crosses. When you step inside, he can hurt you up close with hooks, right? He's not trying to just be right in front of you. He's literally trying to offensively overwhelm you, whether you're far away or up close. Now, yes, he's young. Yes, he has holes in his game, right? If you start to overwhelm him, he goes in a defensive shell. And he's not a guy who throws punches while he's in a defensive shell. In other words, he'll just cover up, right? He's kind of hard to hit to the body because he leans forward. But when he gets in a defensive shell, it looks to me like his body is open. But all I could say is good luck getting close enough to him to throw punches to the body. I view this fight as a toss-up. I understand Fonfara hasn't fought anybody, but looking at his style looks awfully good to me. It looks like he could cause some trouble. The bet I'm recommending on this fight is a distance play. I don't see this fight going the distance. I understand Glen Johnson has one of boxing's iron chins, but he is in his 40s. This guy Fonfara is so offensively gifted that he himself has not had to go the distance since 2009. He's working on a string of knockouts, right? The Byron Mitchell fight, Mitchell hits the canvas multiple times. When he gets up after the last knockdown, the referee goes over to him, wanting to know if he can continue. Mitchell looks like he waves it off. He's that beaten up. I believe it's an open question as to whether Glen Johnson can go the distance against Andrzej Fonfara. I know it sounds far-fetched, but understand this is the perpetual story of boxing. New guys coming out of nowhere and taking out faded, experienced, better-known fighters, right? So I'm not going to predict a Fonfara victory. Far from it. What I'm going to predict is that this fight doesn't go the distance. Somebody is going to get cracked. Fonfara is a headhunter, doesn't really throw a lot to the body. Maybe Johnson, who does work angles, is going to back him up against the ropes, and maybe Fonfara won't know how to fight off his back foot. But another possibility is that Glen Johnson goes in and starts with his machine gun approach, and then Fonfara answers fire with fire, right? And all I'm saying is Fonfara is so fast-handed. You know, in my opinion, he has above average hand speed. And his attack is so two-handed. And it's so thorough in terms of being able to throw jabs and crosses when you're at distance, two-handed. Then when you step up close, he shortens the punches. Now he's a mid-range hooker. You come really close, he's able to continue to throw punches. He can shorten his hooks even more. Right? I think this is the kind of youth and volume that's going to give Glen Johnson all he can handle. Let me also point out, too, that neither Johnson nor Fonfara seems to have an off switch. They're going to be throwing punches the whole time. Don't be fooled by the fact that Glen Johnson's recent fights against Butte, against Carl Froch, went the distance, right? Those guys had a jab and knew how to fight long and, were spinning Glen Johnson. I expect an all-out shootout in the Fonfara versus Glen Johnson fight, right? I expect something much more intense than Johnson's fights against Froch or Butte. I'm expecting a stoppage. My recommendation is that you take both guys to get the knockout. I don't know who gets the knockout, but I believe one of these guys will. This is an explosive fight. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for watching.